Alright everybody, today's the day. We are installing the Holley Hyperspark here with the ignition box, the coil, and the distributor here. Onto the Camaro. I've got the spark plugs off. I have my switch 12 volt source figured out, my ground figured out, and my power figured out, and that should be just about all the wires that I need to get this thing up and running. I just have to do a bunch of little stuff, and I'll be recording all of it, try to show you guys hopefully how easy this is. Shouldn't be too difficult. But I want to show you guys everything that comes in this whole kit here. It's a little 3-part kit. You can buy them all separate and run it all separate, but I mean, obviously they all work better together, so I'm going to set the camera up here and then go through everything with you. Okay, here's everything you get. You have your ignition box over here, your coil, or your distributor right here, and the coil right here. The coil, super high quality. Thing's beautiful. I love the matte black they went for most of this here. But nice metal finish, everything. It feels very solid. With that coil, you get your wiring harness. This is going to work with this ignition box, and I'll show you the wiring when I get to that. And then you get your spark plug boot and your mounting screws. For the distributor here, you can see it there. All it is a MSD billet distributor, and it even says MSD on the cap here, which I believe, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Holley owns MSD, so that makes sense. The gear here is nothing special. They give you some gear lube right there to put on it, mainly for breaking in, but mine's already broken in, but I might put a little bit on it just in case. Then they give you your cap for holding down the spark plugs, wires. Holley's special little cap here that helps you get the timing and top dead center set just right. I've never used one, but we're about to, so I'll let you know how it goes. And then you have your wiring harness for this guy. This plugs right into the wiring harness on the Holley Sniper EFI. There should be a green and purple wire coming off of your EFI unit, and that should plug right into it. This pink is a switch 12 volt, and this plugs into the distributor. Plugs in down here. Then you also have this guy that comes with it. This goes to the ignition box. This is red is power, and the white is for points. I'm not going to use points, but it's there if you need it. And then, of course, you also get your distributor gaskets, a couple hard hold down screws. And then for the nice big guy, you have this Holley Sniper EFI ignition box here. And this thing's beautiful. It's nice matte black finish, all metal, super nice quality. Not too heavy, but it feels quality. So you got that, and then you get the whole harness with it. This part right here will plug right into that ignition box, and then you have your heavy wires right here, your power ground. This will go into right here. Let's see if I can focus on that. This will go right onto the red and white that I showed you on the distributor. And then this guy here is gonna go with the coil. Now the wire colors are a little bit different on this one, and I have to read about it still to figure out which one goes to which, but it shouldn't be too hard. You just gotta pretty much wire them together and you're good right there. And then also you get some connectors, your hold down screws, and yeah, that's just about it. But overall, this is everything you get for the whole kit. I think I spent about 500 bucks on all this, which isn't any more expensive than what you would spend buying a whole MSD setup if you're going to buy an ignition box, a coil, and a distributor from MSD for just a regular Chevy. So if you have a Holley Sniper EFI, this is the way to go, because you can control timing, you can do a lot more with this system, and it's a lot better than an HEI. But yeah, I'm going to set up the camera and start installing this stuff, start wiring it up, and hopefully it's not too bad, but we'll see though. These manuals aren't too bad to go through. The one that's really good came with the ignition box, and it gives you all your wiring stuff right here, so this is what I'm gonna pretty much use to wire everything up. But I read through everything and nothing seems too bad. Just when you take it apart, especially for your old distributor, make sure you know where your top dead center is. Make sure, yeah, I think they were saying it has to be on the compression stroke when you take it out, so I might have to pop off a valve cover and just verify it, but shouldn't be too bad, so I'm gonna get this set up. Alright, so I'm gonna try to go through this step by step, but basically, this reading before, this is to find your good 12 volt switch, 12 volt switched wire and your power ground. But first step over here, disconnect the power ground, of course. This is from the coil, disconnect the negative battery, of course, as well. But number 2 here is rotate the crankshaft in the direction of the engine rotation until it reads 0 degrees. So we have to make sure that it's also on compression stroke. So I went ahead and popped off the valve cover, and to get compression stroke, the easiest way for me is to watch these rocker arms. Now, I don't know, there might be easier ways, but this is the way that I do it at least. I'm going to throw a torque wrench down there onto the crank and spin the crank over, and I'm just going to watch these until it's on compression stroke. So I'm going to set the camera up again and show you guys. Forgot to mention, guys, to tell it's on compression stroke, you can line up your exhaust here with this rocker arm. So this controls the exhaust, and you can line it up here with the intake port. This controls the intake. So compression stroke, of course, this is going to go down, open up the valve, and then it's going to let the exhaust out. And then this is going to open up, let air in, and then it's going to close. And then once this is closed, the intake, the piston's coming up and compressing the fuel and the air inside the cylinder. So you're on compression stroke. So as long as this is open and shut, and then this is going to open and shut, then we know we're on our compression stroke. Okay, I've got my torque wrench on down here on the crank pulley bolt, so I can turn the engine over now. But as you can see, as I'm turning this rocker arm here is starting to go down, so that valve inside the cylinder is open. So right now we're on our exhaust stroke. Okay, now it's coming up to close. So the piston's coming back up the hole, pushing the exhaust out. Okay, now this intake is starting to go down, so it's letting air in. That piston's coming down and sucking air in. Okay. Now it's coming back up, so that valve is closing. Okay, that's all the way shut now. So now that there's air in the cylinder, there's fuel in the cylinder, now that piston can come back up and compress it. So now we're on the compression stroke. I'm going to get it onto my crankshaft right there, and we have to line up the 0 mark on the for the timing mark, and that should be our top dead center right there. So I'm going to check that out, but we should be pretty close. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see this, but both of these rocker arms right here are still open, so it's still on its compression stroke. I had to turn it over a couple more times just to try and get it lined up just right, but kind of hard to see if my camera would focus, but it is just maybe a couple of degrees past or before. I'm not going to worry too much about it, but it's pretty dang close. The mark right there is kind of hard to get right on the spot when you're rotating it over, but should be close enough for me. Okay, so next thing we got on here was remove spark plug wires, vacuum hoses, of course. Just remove everything you have going on in there. The next, we have to remove the distributor lift, or the distributor hold down plate, lift up the distributor, remove it. It talks about how, of course, the gear on the distributor meshes with the gear on the camshaft, so it's going to rotate as you pull it out. Distributor's out. Alright, new distributor's going in. Lubed up a little bit. Got my gasket on too. Here we go. Alright, she's fully seated in there, and as you can see, it's pointing towards number 1 cylinder. So at this point, I think we just set everything up. Alright, so I got the distributor in, and it's time to use Holley's little special cap that they supply you with. Basically all you do is line up the rotor just like that. This is pointing basically at number 1 cylinder right there. So now what we're going to do is rotate this bottom part of the distributor while holding this cap until they line up. So just about right there is perfect, just like that. And now you can see a little mark down there where your number 1 spark plug wire should be. So you're going to mark the housing on the distributor with a Sharpie, whatever you want to mark it with, and that'll mark where your number 1 spark plug wire goes on your distributor cap. Okay, and next thing I did after that, I tightened down the hold down back there so the distributor can't be rotated right now, and then I plugged in the 3-pin harness that came with the distributor right here, and you're gonna have a purple and a green, and that plugs into the purple and green on your Sniper EFI harness. You also have a pink wire coming out of that 3-pin, and that pink wire goes to your switched 12 volt. And that's it for that distributor right now. Time for the ignition box. So I was going over the wiring diagram here, and there's the red and white connector that you get right here. This guy here. And now this will plug into the wiring harness for that ignition box, which is right here. So that red wire needs to be on a switch 12 volt as well. So I actually went back and wired it into that switch 12 volt that I have going to the distributor. So those two are tied in together. They're both going to have 12 volts switched, so they're going to come on the exact same time. The white wire there is for a point system, so I'm not going to use it. But everything should plug in. I am planning on, I think I'm going to put this ignition box back here on this firewall. Somewhere right in here, I think. And everything should run out of there pretty easily. And then this way I have a bunch of grounds nearby. And then I'm going to feed the battery power off of the starter, I believe. So I should have a clean source from everything if I place that there. So yeah, I'm going to start plugging everything in and maybe mount this sucker up and see how it looks. Alright, got the ignition box mounted, got the coil mounted over here right next to it. I think that's probably the best place for it. Then I'm just going to run a coil wire over from there to the distributor. It's kind of a long coil wire, but I don't know where else I could have really put that coil and made it look decent. Other than that, this ignition box plugged right into this, so that should communicate good with that. I have the power hooked up to the starter down there. I have the grounded right there, Let's see, the body ground, everything is regrounded, so I think I have to run spark plug wires now. Alright, I believe that I have everything wired correctly. All the spark plugs are in. Hopefully I have them in the right order. That's all wired up. That should be good. I haven't tested anything yet, so you guys are gonna find out as quickly as I am. But okay, I'm getting ready to turn the car on and change some of these settings in here. I went in a little bit ago and swapped it around, but I want to show you guys where it's all at. So you're gonna go into tuning here. You're gonna go into system. You're gonna go into ignition setup. Okay, and now you would usually have coil or whatever you're running. So you're gonna go on your ignition type and change it to Hyperspark distributor. And then your reference angle, you can click on that. In the book they recommend 57.5, and they recommend to start with 100 for the inductive delay. The rev limiter they don't talk about on there, but that's what they recommend for that. Alright, I am going to give it a shot real quick, see if it'll start up. I honestly have no idea if it will. Alright everybody, we are on day 2 of the Holley Hyperspark installation. Last night I was just getting a little too late for everything and decided to call it quits for now. I think I figured out what my issue was, why it wasn't starting. So I think it's just one wire that I have to mess with, but I'm going to tie in that wire and see if that does it, and then if that's it I'm going to let you guys know. But I think what it is the white wire that they have labeled as a points wire. I think that has to be tied in no matter what. I think that needs to be used now. I thought it was for a different system, but I think I could be wrong. But yep, I'm going to wrap this stuff up and try to crank it over again and see what happens. Okay, let's try this for the 3rd time around and see how it goes. It started right up, so that was the issue. It was just that one white wire. It's the white wire that comes out of the ignition box there and comes out of the wiring harness. I don't want it to run too long because I don't have anything set up right. I don't want any wires to catch on fire, but it sounds good. It's revving really good. Let's see. If I shut that off, you can see that light's green, so it's saying the system's all good. Awesome. I need to button up some wires and stuff and check the timing, but yeah, for this one, this is all I wanted to do. Yeah, part 2 is going to be me checking the timing on there and starting to mess with everything. Oop, there it goes. Don't know what that was about. But yeah, stay tuned for part 2, guys. That's coming soon.